Hey everyone, this is a live recording of McCool and the Gang, and we have the incredible Beija Flo. Woohoo!
It's me. Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. It's really lovely to be here. It's nice to see another human being.
I know, even if it is on a screen.
It is, yeah. Well, it's the only way to meet up with people nowadays, isn't it? It's like just virtual pub, virtual pub, virtual pub.
I know, pub quiz. Like,
Yeah.
I never want to do a pub quiz again. Yes, thank you so much for coming on. It's nice to have like more female guests, because I was looking at my list of episodes. I'm like, too many guys. No, too many guys.
It's girls' night.
Well, I don't even know why that is, because I tend to listen to just exclusively female music.
Ah, no way.
Yeah, I don't know. I figured it out the other day. Yeah, I looked at my like Spotify analysis, and yeah, just lots of female music, which
Lots
is
of
great.
female music. Ah, wonderful. I think I'm sort of a bit 50-50. I sort of go through phases as well. Like, I mean, I think we all had that month last year where all we listened to was just Billie Eilish as well. So sort of sometimes you just sort of have phases like that. So
Yes. So Beija, just for people who may not know you as an artist, can you give us an idea of who you are and what you do?
I'm me, and I do most things except maths, really, because I like singing loads, and I do lots of songwriting and poetry and life modelling and photography, and just I like hosting things sometimes. I've really gotten into stand-up comedy because every grown man over the age of 50 has felt the need to tell me that I am funny. Like, I didn't know that I was funny at the end of every gig. It's like, no, yeah, every joke is an accident, because, yeah. But yeah, so I do lots of things. I'm sort of one of those arty-farty, quite good at it all, or not that good at it all. So I just, not that good at one thing, so just sort of do loads of things. Yeah.
I'd say you were very good at the things that you do. Haven't seen you live.
I mean, I'm just being modest, and I'm quite good at being modest too. So
Love it. Amazing. So what kind of things have you been getting up to in lockdown then?
lots of things. When it sort of first happened, I think we all sort of panicked, especially like sort of artistic people and creative people. And I think, like, for a lot of us as well, sort of a lot of our work sort of kind of started to get cancelled before the official lockdown happened, which was quite hard. So, like, all of my life modelling classes, they all got cancelled because a lot of the people that I model for are sort of like older people and more vulnerable people. And I'm vulnerable myself, so that was sort of a little bit scary because I've got a few underlying health issues. So yeah, so I think at first I sort of treated it a bit like, you know, that bit in Christmas in between Boxing Day and New Year's where you don't really do anything but just drink and eat loads.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of that, and then we sort of got a bit sad for a bit, and then I was like, oh no, actually, because I do still really need to be creative, so I sort of started to try and find ways to sort of get back into it. So I have still been doing like lots of art and drawing and things and making signs. I turned the house into a fun fair for the day. That was really good. We called it Moo Bagland. I don't know.
What was behind the name? Moo Bagland.
Yeah, well, it was inspired by... I don't mention much, but I have a sibling. But I don't mention her much because I'm enough. But we did that for her because we just thought it'd be nice. And then I've been doing like quite a few sort of gigs. I find sort of the live gigs are kind of the most stressful because obviously it's not like RuPaul's Drag Race where we're all getting sent like a big like posh camera pack kind of thing. It's very much sort of like, you know, Ray Mears style of like what you've got is what you've got. So we've gotten quite creative with that. And my sister's been doing a bit of filming, and my mum's been doing a bit of mum filming, and you can tell the difference between who's doing what because of the quality of filming. No, you're doing a grand job, Mum. She's not doing it now. I'm fully on my own. This is a full on Natalie and Beija production. But yeah, so that's been quite fun, and I'm quite lucky because in the house that I'm in, we've got a really, really nice big. We just moved in and we got given a mini grand piano to come with the house, and not many people do that.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, my dad was excited about the fridge, but I was far more excited about the piano.
Your dad there's a piano in the corner, Dad. What the?
I know. Yeah.
What
So I was just sort of like, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know if we're gonna be able to keep it." And I was like, "I know that I don't live here normally, but like you have to keep it, otherwise I'm not keeping you."
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, I'll get Mum to leave you. I have more power. So that's been like really, really, really lovely. And I've got my guitarist / boyfriend here who can do things and stuff like that. So we've just sort of had to just really DIY it in terms of music. But I've still been doing a little bit of songwriting. I'd say, I wouldn't say that I write particularly happy things anyway, because when I'm happy, I'm off being happy. So I just sort of generally write sort of like songs about my feelings. But I think songwriting is a really good, because it is a bit of a dark time. I mean, I say a bit, it really is. It's a shit show, Boris. Sort it out. But also, I think it's, you know, like it's raised a lot of issues. Like I think for me, I think like, and for a lot of people that I've spoken to, like when you've just spent loads and loads of time with pretty much just you and your thoughts, sort of lots of issues and stuff come to the surface of maybe things that you've not fully dealt with. And also, I think turns out that like the lockdown and a drug addiction doesn't fully go well together because you can't see your dealer as often, if at all. So I've had to quit weed, which I didn't sort of realise was really a problem until I was here. And then I was like, this is a problem and I should deal with this. But my mum's been great and my boyfriend's been great. So we've been sort of doing that. And I've been writing loads of stand-up comedy about it. And I'm sober considering how drunk I am. I've not smoked any for 2 weeks or something, or more than that. And we sort of did like the weaning off kind of thing. So I've been writing loads of songs and stand-up comedy about that. And I've started getting really into knitting.
Oh, man. Good for you, because I don't have the patience at all. My mum has tried so many times. Like, my mum is sick at knitting. She knits all the time. Like, I've got quite a few nieces and nephews, so when they were all babies, she was just like a crazy woman. Yeah. But yeah, I just can't. I don't have the brain patience, I'm afraid. But kudos to you.
Knitting can be a bit tedious, but pom-poms. Have you ever made a pom-pom?
No, but that sounds like something I'd be well into.
They are so easy to make. You just buy a thing and you just wrap it around this thing. And then you like just tie a thing together on each side, and then you cut down the middle, and then it just goes ping, and you take this thing off, and it's just the most satisfying thing ever.
What I want to know now is how many pom-poms have you got now?
Many, and lots of different sizes. I've made one that's literally, it's like the size of my head. Like huge. You can get really, really big pom-pom makers. So that they're really, really fun and pointless to make, but cats love them. So that's good.
I was going to ask you, you know, when you were talking about you only write when you're kind of sad and like, you know, when you've got something to process.
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting, because I don't know whether you do it, but I do it all the time. Like, I'll write a song and then like 3 years later we'll realise actually what it's about.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
And so, sometimes as well, sort of like, you write a song about one thing and you go, okay, I know what that's about. And then a few years later, you're like, oh, but this has happened and now it's also about this. And you're like...
Oh, I get it, yeah. Yeah.
It's sort of, it's weird how sort of applicable lots of different things can be. And also sometimes you write a song and you just go, don't know what that's about. And even a few years later, you're like...
Or maybe we're just making the same mistakes over and over again and not learning from them.
Yes, most probably that. But I prefer my idea more.
yeah, it's way more positive. I do that all the time. And because I thought you were going to say, not that you would reapply your life to the song, but rather that like you thought it was about one thing. And then years later, you realise that, oh, no, it totally was about that. It was about that.
Yes, yeah.
Always do that.
Yeah, it's sort of... Because I'm one of those where I sort of have lots of notebooks and things, and I'm constantly just writing down words and things like that. And sometimes you sort of piece sort of a lot of different things together, or sort of add in a few new bits kind of thing, and you sort of a little bit like, and then sometimes it's like this song started off being about this, and now it's ended up being about this, even though sort of you might have like written certain lyrics about certain things, and then you sort of put it all together, and then it actually ends up being about something completely different. But it is good. Words are good, and emotions are weird.
Yeah. Like at the start of lockdown, I don't even know whether this is okay to say, but I was a bit disappointed because to me, it was just like my usual day. I was like, well, this is completely no different from my fucking usual day, which is sat at home making music anyway.
Yeah.
So I just want to go outside. Like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think I found it quite stressful in the lockdown because what? Beija, you, a confident southerner that will just shout at people? No. So I'm sort of one of those where I'm just like, social distancing. I found water pistols are brilliant for making people social distancing. You go out the house with a water pistol and everyone there, they will cross the road. Like, you don't have to keep doing it every time. But I think sort of, because I'm by the beach where I am, which is really, really lovely. But it means on the really, really nice days, the sort of people that aren't normally here at the beach are all of a sudden at the beach because they can't go to Weatherspoons and have their normal fucking curry Tuesdays or whatever it is. They're all just like, oh, just go to the beach and just litter absolutely everywhere. So that's sort of been a bit of a weird one because I'm quite an outdoorsy person. So sort of that's been a bit strange. But I've really gotten into yoga.
Nice.
Namaste. Which is really, really good because I never thought that besides sex I'd be good at something physical. So I'm sort of like, well, this is great. Like, why didn't anyone ever show me this before? But I guess better late than never. Yeah.
So regarding songwriting, your songwriting is quite personal to your own experiences. And when I say that, I mean your single One of Those Things relates to the syndrome that you have, which is MRKH.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, no, happily, because I shout it from the rooftops and I think everyone should know what it is. So MRKH syndrome affects 1 in 5,000 women. It's completely random, luck of the draw, lucky me. And it basically means that I was born without a cervix and a uterus and a vagina and a few other bits, which means I don't have periods and I can't have children. And until I've completed a treatment that's called dilation treatment, I won't have a vagina. I'm about halfway there. I've got 50% of a vagina, 50% fanny. So that's really nice. But dilation treatment, it's one of those where whenever you hear the word, well, or not me, because I'm not scared of anything, but whenever people sort of hear the word vagina, they sort of tense up and they don't like talking about it because it's women problems and I don't want to do it. But I've decided that we have to because it's really important. And dilation treatment is actually used by lots of different women, not just women with MRKH syndrome. So it's essentially you use heavy dildos to stretch the muscle because the vagina is a muscle, so it can be stretched, and like that's how women give birth, is that
exactly,
it stretches. So I suppose women with issues like me or women that use dilation treatment, in a lot of ways we are really, really lucky that it does exist. It's not just like, well, never mind, that's just you. But lots of women use it. Transgender women use it. Women that have had cervical cancer radiotherapy use it, and also women that suffer with vaginas muse also use it. So there's quite a lot of us using this particular treatment, and although we don't all have the same issues and the same struggles going through life, it's sort of quite nice that there's a little sort of like dilation club, because there's not that many women that you obviously meet on a day-to-day basis. Like, it's not like I have quite a lot of friends with MRKH syndrome now, because obviously I've reached out and I've met lots of women and they've reached out to me, which has been really, really lovely. But it's really mad when you sort of speak to some people, because I kind of thought that I'd had a bit of a hard time. It took me a few years to get diagnosed, and that was really, really hard. And I was lied to by the gynecologist back where I lived in Harlow in Essex. And then I sort of got sent off to the specialist in London, and then I got there and the doctor was like, you've been actually lied to, which was
What?
kind of horrific. Yeah, so it got sent off of like, oh yeah, they're just going to speak to you about a wee mini surgery. We think things aren't quite joined up, so just go speak to them and we won't have to deal with it, basically. I got to the specialist MRKH team in London, and I met lots of other women with MRKH syndrome, and lots of women are really, really embarrassed by it. Lots of women have been made to feel really, really embarrassed by it, whereas my mum she's like, oh, we'll buy you a dildo and maybe that will encourage you to do your treatment, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, thanks, Mum, cheers.
Your mum absolutely rocks.
Vibrators galore, it's great. But not everyone has that. And I think I was quite lucky again with the first sort of lot of my sexual partners. Haven't been as lucky since, and then I'm now lucky again. I also sort of had like quite a nice sort of support network essentially when I was first diagnosed, and I was sort of made to not feel embarrassed by having it, and that sort of made me, I think, sort of confident maybe in places that other women shouldn't have to be or aren't necessarily sort of like feel confident about talking about it. And I think I've just sort of decided that basically if everyone just knew what it was, then they wouldn't sort of run for the hills or think that you're some sort of man or a gorilla or whatever. You know, I think it's important that, you know, as if a woman with MRKH syndrome sees themselves as a woman, then they are a woman and everyone else should see them to be a woman. So that's sort of my message, and that's sort of why I wrote about it and talk about it loads, because I just sort of think, you know, it's not like when you meet someone with like diabetes or whatever, and you know that it's obviously like they struggle and that's a really hard thing to deal with on a daily basis, but you still fucking know what it is.
Yeah, you know what? When you were first talking about it, I must admit, like, I'd never heard of it before, and I had to Google it because I didn't know what it was.
Well, before I was diagnosed,
it's just awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before, and then, you know, and for a bit I sort of felt a little bit embarrassed and sort of like, oh god, I'm never going to be normal and stuff. But I've realised that I'm not normal anyway, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you know, I still have a bloody great sex life. I'll still be the best sex you've ever had, and you know, I don't even have all the proper parts yet.
Good to hear.
So, but look,
how old were you when you found out about the syndrome and were diagnosed?
I was smaller. I was sort of in my sort of late sort of teens kind of thing. Sort of so I can't fully remember. I was sort of like 17 or something. So this was many, many, many moons ago, back in the 1800s or something. But yeah. So it sort of it took me sort of a few years, and then I sort of realised that actually this is a really, really important cause and should be spoken about a lot more, and people should be educated and know what it is. Because also, since I've been shouting about it from every stage that I'm put on, and getting kicked out of Tory festivals for speaking about it, apparently the word uterus is a swear word. No, cervix, that's what they said. She was like, she can't swear, she's just said cervix, cut the mic. And since I've shouted about it, I've met lots of other people with lots of other sexual health issues, women and men, have come and sort of shared their stories and experiences with me in terms of sort of their struggles with sex and their bodies. And I think a large sort of issue sort of really is in sort of sex education from, you know, sort of in a lot of like Scandinavian countries, they start sex ed at like 8 years old. And I think it's so important because if you think about it, like there is no life, like life starts with sex, and then such a huge part of life is sex. And sort of, I think as British people, we sort of shy away from talking about it, but I think that shouldn't be the case. And I think especially for sort of all the millennials or snowflakes or whatever it is that they call us, like, you know, we're sort of breaking that boundary and sort of realising that actually it's okay to talk about sex, and actually it's important to talk about sex.
I agree, because when you're a kid, as a teen, like, you know what sex is, and as a result, you don't really, because you've never kind of done it, it's kind of an embarrassing thing to think about. But if you got taught about that when you were a kid, kids don't really have any self-awareness yet, really, right? So, you know, if a kid's learning about the body and about sex and stuff, then it would remove like all the shame and embarrassment that people may have when they're even like a couple of years older. Yeah,
and I think it's just sort of it's one of those as well where sort of I think especially like for women, sort of, you know, with the whole sort of topic of like say like masturbation kind of thing. I think for women it's very sort of looked down on and is very, very not spoken about. And yet for men, they're sort of allowed to just speak about it from very, very early ages and draw penises all over science tables and things like that. And that's okay. Whereas like women are sort of made to feel bad for talking about their part, their bits and their sex life. Whereas actually it's a really, really normal human thing sort of. And I think like lots of women almost, it means that with sort of how they're sort of set up and how people are taught is that a lot of women don't understand a lot about their body, so they don't really know what's fully going on, and also that means, and if they don't know what's going on, then men don't know what's going on. The amount of men that like the clitoris, what? And you're like, that? Oh no, like you're doing it all wrong. Stop doing it wrong. And I think like there's obviously porn is a big topic, and lots of people are talking about that a lot more. And I think, porn is good and bad. I think sort of some of it can be great, but also some of it can sort of, I think, maybe lead certain people astray in sort of terms of what they should expect and also what they're expected to do. And that works for men and women. And so I think it's good that sort of more people are sort of starting to talk about it. And
have you seen Sex Education?
I have. Yes, there was actually a girl in it that in the second series that had to do dilation treatment. So I was like, yes,
I remember that.
One for the team. But it's the fact that things like that are on big channels like Netflix, which is such a big part of sort of everyone's lives at the moment. They seem pretty cool, Netflix, in terms of sort of, especially with like everything that's happening at the moment with racism happening largely in America with police brutality and things like that. Like they've taken down a lot of things I've seen of like Little Britain and things like that. So they're very sort of actually quite an educational sort of medium, I think, which is really good. And I think in terms of things like sex and mental health and anti-racism and homophobia and things like that, like these are things that we should be learning about and talking about and should be a part of all of our lives.
It's just about being seen, isn't it? Like when you were talking about the MRKH and wanting to talk about it, it's like being seen for actually who you are. Because I was talking to my friend Misha about everything going on at the moment, because I think we're going to do some kind of writing project on like just our feelings towards everything. But she was like, I just can't even deal with like, if George Floyd wasn't seen, then I'm not going to be seen, and that freaks me out. So it is like to like feel like you're a part of the world and like a real fucking person, like to be seen as you, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also sort of one of those where, for instance, that all the women that I know with MRKH syndrome, we're all sort of, quite spread out, and I've got friends all over the world because of this. And I think, just because not everyone knows someone personally with MRKH syndrome or knows someone personally that has experienced racism of any kind or homophobia of any kind or whatever, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, and doesn't mean that those people out there aren't important. It doesn't mean that those issues aren't still really, really important and need to be talked about and need to be educated on. And I think especially that, like, I really, really do hope. I've been, signing and sharing loads of petitions about, changing the way education happens in Britain, for example, and in all countries. I sort of do what I can. But I think it's really important that we talk about all these things, and even sort of mental health. I think, like these are all really important things that have been happening for years and years and years, and I think it's really, really sad that it's taken this long until people are actually making their voices heard and being given a platform to sort of have their voices heard. But I think it's also really good that people are doing that, and people are sort of, making petitions and going to protests and organising protests and making these things happen. It's
only positive, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
So it's amazing. And I think it's, it's also sort of, there's such beauty in watching so many people come together, especially over issues that don't necessarily affect them. Like, for instance, with MRKH syndrome, sort of the fact that I've had, I think when I first sort of started, and I still occasionally get the odd knobhead come up to me and sort of, do all the weird, fucking blokey, weird, flirty, horrible, uncomfortable thing, or the, offensive. And occasionally some women are like, you shouldn't talk about that. That should be private. And I'm like, well, it's my issue and it's my feeling. So if I decide that it's private, then I decide it's private. If I decide that it's public, then it's public. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Susan. But I've also had like some really, really wonderful feedback on that, and also great feedback from, you know, fully grown men that have, you know, really, really supported my cause and have really, really heard me and seen and felt what, you know, I wanted them to feel, and have been really, really lovely and supportive about that. So, you know, I think it's good that sort of people are finally, just sort of being a bit more open to things. And I think, you know, even you know, sort of the fact that you see all these arguments, and I know that it's one of those where sort of like, you know, homophobic people and sexist people and racist people, you know, I guess a large portion of them, you know, maybe won't change their minds now or even in a few months or a few years or sadly even ever. But also, like, I think it's great that people are having those arguments and those debates, and, you know, are sort of you know, showing those people in great numbers that, like, well, all of these people think you're wrong. So, like, you know, if you just want to be on your own in your own little corner thinking that you're right, then, you know, like, that is really, really sad. But we're going to continue to fight and speak about, you know, all of these really, really important subjects. So I think
no, you're right. In lockdown, I've just been hammering Louis Theroux documentaries, like re-hammering them, and it's just like so interesting because, I think it's parenting plays a huge part in like judgmental attitudes and the way people view others and like prejudice, and it's insane. Like, I believe that parenting actually is the reason for everybody's judgments, because prejudice is only it's a learned behavior.
It's taught essentially. And you know, I think it's really important that we teach all about, you know, the experiences of sort of like, you know, what women have fought for, what you know, black people have fought for, you know, what gay people have fought for. You know, it's so important. And, you know, even things of like, I was from in Harlow, we have a huge Polish community. And I went to school with lots and lots of Polish people, and, you know, I was always really, really good friends with them. It never bothered me. Like, my parents have got friends from absolutely all over the world. My dad's quite famous in the martial arts world, so I was sort of constantly surrounded by...
No way.
Yeah.
My dad used to teach jiu-jitsu.
Oh, no way. My dad does... Well, my dad does like a lot of karate and Kali, but he also helped introduce capoeira to the UK, which is why I was called Beija Flo, because that's Portuguese for hummingbird. So I was always surrounded by sort of, you know, especially like Brazilian people, and, you know, it's sort of, you know, I was always surrounded by people with lots of different accents, and I think especially going in and out of being so close to London, and I've travelled sort of quite a bit, you know, sort of I'm eager to learn about lots of different people's cultures and experiences. So to me, it's more alien when you sort of meet people that are very much anti that. And I think, you know, I think sort of things like Brexit is a huge sort of shame of things like that. That I think has sort of set us back quite a bit. But I think also people are slowly starting to realise that, you know, like Brexit is, well, I don't think it's a good thing. I speak very openly and thinking that I don't. But I think also it sort of, for a bit, sort of gave an excuse for the racists to sort of come out of their little caves, or like, or well, anyway, introduce themselves more, be more present in my world. Anyway, I know that they've always been there, sadly, but
but at least now you know who they are.
Well, yes, but
that's like something I've learned from Inglourious Basterds.
And I think it was really sort of sad that Brexit sort of gave them a voice and almost sort of like an excuse to think that their thoughts were right. But I think also since then people have sort of realised that actually it's not the best thing, and actually, you know, this country was essentially sort of made on you know, different people's cultures. There's a great Stuart Lee set about
Paul
Nuttall.
Oh my god!
How, you know, he goes all the way back through all of these different.
Oh, it's amazing.
All the different centuries.
There was nothing.
Yeah, do you remember when there was nothing?
Nothing.
So get back in the sea.
Get back in the sea.
They came up on our land.
You could lock your door, and it was fine. because there were no houses.
There was no houses. There was just nothing.
There was nothing. Highly recommended.
Yeah, it's things like that where you sort of see how the Celts came over and the Romans came over, and all of these times, and even now it's sort of like like so much of our favourite foods and things like that. Music, like art. There's just so much that's come from all over the world, and I think sort of it's almost comical. I mean, it's in a really, really shitty, sad way.
But it's interesting because we believe that we can go anywhere and not be an immigrant. How does that work? We're expats. Yeah, I always think that's really funny. Like, if a British person is living somewhere else, or is like, emigrated to another country, like they never refer to themselves as an immigrant. It's like, it's all about language, isn't it? And like perception. You know what? I did have a question. How do you write then? So do you work with someone else on the songwriting, or do you work with someone else on the recording?
No, I write everything on my own, because I just sort of write and talk about everything that I think is important and what I've like my experiences. And I think sort of like I'm also one of those where I've not really like solved a problem unless like I've written a song about it, done 4 poems and a whole art exhibition for it.
Yeah.
So I sort of do that, but I've sort of got a really, really lovely sort of team of other like lovely people that help me out in sort of all the different mediums that I sort of like to express through. So my main go-to guy is a star baker every year, Sam Baker, who is just amazing, and he produces all of my music. And it's sort of, I think, once you find someone that you really like why change?
Yeah, I'm all about that. And definitely,
he's so great, and he is responsible for the sound that we all know and love that is Beija Flo, because he's just so talented. He doesn't need, whether we're in a very, very small cupboard or a bedroom or a really, really posh studio, he just sort of manages to produce all of these amazing sounds. But yeah, and so there's all these sort of different. I'm Robin Cluley.
Oh, Robin's amazeballs. He's like an image genius.
Everyone that I meet that like I really, really, really like in Liverpool, and I'm just like, who did your photos? And they're like, do you know Robin Cluley? And I'm like, yes, we love Robin.
And also the nicest dude. So your last single, Nudes, I love that. I love your stripped back version.
Oh, thank you.
Have you been writing more then? What's coming up for you? Can you tell us? And I mean, I know the world has like been cancelled, but what plans are you formulating?
Well, it's sort of it's one of those where everything sort of works out. I feel like I love fate and the subconscious, because I was planning on releasing what will still be my next single. I'm not entirely sure when, but it definitely will be at some point this year. Which is my song Heads or Tails, which is largely about my hometown, Harlow, which is the most murderous town in England and Wales.
Oh my lord!
Yeah, we're on the map, and so it's largely about that, and also sort of broken Britain in a sort of very, very broad sense, as well, of sort of poverty and sort of like small towns, and especially because we are quite a poverty-stricken town.
Right.
There's lots and lots of people struggling, and yet we still have a Conservative Party MP. Boo. So not keen on that. But yeah, so sort of, I think sort of like growing up there, and then also moving to Liverpool, which obviously again isn't the Conservative Party's favourite city in the whole of the UK.
Say that again.
Yeah. So I sort of like, and I think sort of the song at the moment actually is really sort of quite relevant, because lots of people are really struggling. Like, again, our current government, surprise, surprise, is more worried about the economy than, the NHS being overrun and having proper PPE. It's quite important, I think, for me, and for hopefully for lots of people to sort of release that this year, to sort of highlight a lot of the issues that we sort of face here.
Great. When are you thinking of doing that then? Or do you know yet? It's fine if you don't.
Yeah, I don't fully know, because before the world ended, I was just about to go down to see my Sam in the big old London, and do a load of gigs there, and finish recording the single. So at the moment we're sort of trying to do it over the big wide web, which we shall see. We've got a large amount of it done, but I think also for me, like, it's I don't do things in halves. I mean, it was only my third single, and I was like, an art exhibition, a big release show, sod it, 2 release shows.
But if that's your vibe, like if that's what you want to do as an artist, then you should fucking do it. Like it's all about creating your own little world, isn't it? Like, and I think you do that really well.
Oh, thank you.
If anyone does it well, it's you. Like from what I've seen, I think it's dead important.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it's just important that everyone just knows what I think about everything
because it's you.
Because I am right about most things, yeah. But no, like, so I think, yeah, it sort of depends because, you know, I still want to do like a really, really good music video for it.
Will you shoot it in Harlow? Is the question.
Well, I'm not entirely sure. It also depends on how everything goes, and I think from what I've heard as well that I'm not entirely sure how Harlow's dealing with social distancing, but then it doesn't really seem like anyone's really sort of doing it properly here. It's a bit of a weird and not so wonderful time at the moment, so it sort of all depends on what sort of happens.
Yeah, see how things go. Stay safe.
Stay alert.
Stay alert. Thanks so much for coming on. Is there anything else you want to chat about or tell us? Like,
I don't think so. I think just do nice things and look after yourself, and everyone should just be thinking about, you know, treating others how they want to be treated and sort of trying to imagine what it would be like to be in other people's situations. And, you know, at the moment there's just so much happening, and there's so much sort of like loneliness and hatred going on in the world, with the lockdown and, you know, all the racism, especially happening in America at the moment. So I think it's just sort of about doing as much as we can to help other people whilst also still looking after ourselves. And just, you know, as Boris said, the brilliant advice, just stay alert. Because obviously the virus, it could just pop out from behind a tree at any moment. We just don't know. So
stay safe, peeps.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries.
And if anyone wants to see or do, you can't do what I normally do because I do it. If you want to see or talk about it, then just get in touch and check out all of my social medias and my Spotify. And it's just been really, really lovely. What a lovely podcast.
Oh no, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh no, thank you.
It's really, really great. This is a live episode of McCool and the Gang, which is my podcast, and thanks so much to Beija Flo. Woohoo!
Oh, thank you.
For coming on, and hopefully see you in the real world very soon.
Yeah, we will. Yes. We will meet again.
We will meet again in a musical capacity, or maybe not.
At a 2-meter distance, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Beija.
Oh no, thank you.
Bye.
Lots of love. Goodbye.
Thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and follow to this podcast. I'm Natalie McCool, and you can find me and my music on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and also on my website nataliemccool.co.uk. Thanks!